Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is another episode of UFC Banter. This week on the show, we're headed to the West. We're headed to Seattle, where Israel Adesanya looks to reclaim some glory in the middleweight division against Joe Pyfer. Bodybagz looking to make his run into this top 10, looking to go out there and stake a claim over a former champion. Fascinating main event, a stacked fight card from top to bottom. I'm extremely excited to break the action down. And you know that we can't go it alone, guys. We got a great guest this week, a first-time guest of the show, but somebody that I talk fights with each and every week, and I'm excited to have him on the show this week. So without further ado, Marlo, welcome to the show, my brother. It's been a long time coming. How are you?
I appreciate you having me on here, man. We speak a lot, and it's time to make my debut on your show, so I thought, why not?
I absolutely love it, my man. And we got a good card to break down. So without further ado, let's get right into it. We got Alexa Tainara, Bruna Brazil 2. A lot of people don't know, my man, but this is a rematch. Alexa Tainara, I think it was 3 fights deep in her professional career. Goes out there, gets submitted by Bruna Brazil. I thought she was down 2 rounds on the cards as well, but there was a weird low blow exchange to end the 3rd round. It's a feature of Bruna Brazil fights, man. She goes out there and kind of knees people low as they come in because she's so tall and she can hit that midsection. So fascinating fight, interesting rematch, but a huge favorite here for Tainara, even though she lost the first fight. What do you think about this one, my man?
I feel like they're both in different trajectories at the moment. Brazil's on her way out. Tainara is going to become someone that's going to be like a mainstay in the organization. And as you said, she left in 2019. She was green then. She's going to come back for revenge tomorrow. And the price tag is crazy, but you can understand why it is because of the performances they're having. Brazil just seems disinterested. Her past 3 performances, she's barely scraping by, and Tainara is finishing her food.
So I can hear you, brother, but it seems like a couple people in the chat are having a hard time hearing you. Do you have another option in terms of a microphone? If not, that's all right. We could work with it, but I think we should at least try something else.
Yeah, definitely. Just give me 2 seconds. I'll be back.
Absolutely. So I'm going to quickly bounce Marlo. He's going to come back with a different microphone, and you could cue me in the private chat, Marlo, as soon as you're ready. But yeah, essentially, guys, I'll give you my thoughts on this fight really quick. I have been extremely high on Alexa Tainara since she came into the UFC. You know, I think that the things that she brings to the table, we kind of saw on Contender Series, right? She went out there, she threw a lot of volume against Rose Conceição. She threw hard low kicks. She was going after it aggressively with the punches. She was a fearless fighter. And then she's able to go out there and dominate a lot of women on the mat. So when you look at Alexa Tainara, she's got big arms. You know, I posted a picture on Twitter and I retweeted it this week because I thought it's funny. But Alexa Tainara has bigger arms than a lot of people on MMA Twitter. And that's not even a shot at guys on MMA Twitter. That's more of a big ups on Alexa Tainara. You know, when you look at Tainara, she's a big, strong girl for this division. And she's not as tall as Bruna Brazil, but I think she's got a little bit more musculature. Now, the interesting thing about this fight is, I think Tainara is the more tenacious and better grappler of the two. But Bruna Brazil does have long arms. She did go out there and choke her once. She does show, some instincts for looking for chokes. We also saw, times where Bruna Brazil has been, girls go to take her down and then she's able to hip her way into the top position and be a little opportunistic there. So I think Tainara needs to be careful in those exchanges. But the consistent thing about Bruna Brazil is that she just does not throw a lot of volume. I got UFC stats pulled up, so I'll quickly just run you guys through Bruna Brazil's strike totals. She landed 31 significant strikes against Ketlin Souza, 31 against Xi Ming in a win, 31 in a loss against Kong Wang. So she's literally landed 31 significant strikes, 3 fights in a row in the UFC. Then you look at 44 against Molly McCann. She beat Molly McCann's ass and still only managed to land 44 significant strikes. She, I can't believe it says that there's no knockdowns in that fight. She hurt Molly. She kind of kicked her all over the place. Round 1, there was 2 moments where it looked like she was going to finish her, and then Molly was able to just stall it out against the fence, and Bruna doesn't have the greatest finishing instincts. But you look back, 28 significant strikes against Loma. By the way, a common opponent. Tainara dominated Loma Lookboonmee, got 5 takedowns, outlanded her on significant strikes. Meanwhile, Bruna Brazil goes 1-1 on takedowns with Loma Lookboonmee, and she got outlanded by 30 significant strikes in that fight. So for me, not a bullish signal for Bruna Brazil there. Then you look at 56 significant strikes against Shauna Bannon, only +2 in the significant strike totals there, had to rely on 2 takedowns against Shauna Bannon. She got knocked out by Denise Gomez after getting tripled up on strikes. Got knocked down in the second round there. She had given up 3 takedowns to Denise Gomez as well. She didn't like the pressure. She didn't like the aggression. She didn't like the enthusiasm. And she kind of folded the tent there when she was getting hit by the power. Then you look at, okay, in her first, appearance against Mar McMahon, that was the only time she recorded a knockdown in the UFC officially. I think she knocked down Molly McCann, if you ask me. But you look at, 2 takedowns in that fight. She got taken down 3 times by Mar McMahon. So you just have to be weary about a girl like Bruna Brazil, because I think she's got a lot of liabilities. I think she doesn't react great to getting hit. I think that she's not as enthusiastic about fighting as her opponent. And I think she's a little bit more likely to wilt. The one thing that I do wonder in this fight is, like, if Bruna Brazil is a confidence-based fighter and, she knows that she's beaten this girl before, and maybe that makes her a little bit more confident that she could go out there and get the job done. I think that from a money line standpoint, as much as I like Tanara, as much as I respect her, as much as her stats jump off the page, I'm just never going to be laying like -800 type prices, especially on inexperienced fighters. So it would have to be a dog or pass for me on the money line. But I do think that, it's kind of interesting that this fight is being priced to go to a decision. I think Tainara is extremely aggressive. Loma, hard girl to put away, especially in her more recent form. And I think that, Tainara went out there and dominated positions, did her thing. I think she's got a point to prove in this fight with Bruna Brazil. I think she'd like to get it back and go get the finish if she can. Denise Gomes kind of laid out, hey, here's a way that you can go out there and finish this chick, and I feel like I look at Tainara and say, could she go out there and get her first KO? I saw somebody in the chat said Tainara never won by KO. Bruna never been subbed. I think that Tainara could go out there and knock this girl out. I think she could hurt her on the feet, overwhelm her with strikes. When you watch Brazil fight somebody like a Kong Wang who's aggressive and throwing strikes at her, she really reacts poorly. She's running away at times. The commentary was getting brutal. So shout out to our guy, Marlo. He's back in the chat. My man, how are you doing?
Bro, I think I got this little extra thing. Hopefully it works out. Can you hear me clearly?
You sound so much clearer right now. I hope that the chat agrees. Chat, let us know if you disagree, but I think it sounds so much better. So please, my man, take the floor. I basically said, I think that the money line, has gotten away at -800. You're just, there's nothing really for me to do with that. But I think that when you look at, maybe the prop market, that's where I'd get more interested. Tainara KO 10-1, maybe an fight not to go the distance type prop, because I do think Tainara could finish her, and I don't think Brazil will react great to getting hit. But we also know Brazil literally did finish her. So if Tainara was to lose, I think it would be making a catastrophic mistake, being too enthusiastic. What do you think?
100%. As you know, she's already lost by submission. And I'm not saying I know her personally, but if you lose by submission, you're going to try and get it back by finish. She's not going to want to take it to the scorecards. Realistically, gun to head, I don't feel like Bruna Brazil is going to get submitted, but I think the word around town is Tainara can finish her by strikes in 2-3. So I feel like don't go for the money line, go for 2-3. Alexia, put some pizza money on it and hope for the best.
I could not agree more, my man. I think we see this one the exact same. And, I will just watch this money line and see what it does. Because if it gets to a certain point, it's like if Bruna Brazil closes 10-1 in a fight that she won the first time, I'm like, all right, I got to do it. But I think right now it's probably just going to stick where it's at. And I'm happy to pass on the money line at these prices. Next up, my man. This is a great fight, and it's very early on the card. Shout out to our guy, Half the Battle, in the chat. One of the OGs in the game, a true, real one. So shout out to you, my brother. But we got a great fight here to break down, my man. It's in the bantamweight division. Ricky Simone looking to hold court. He's got his home turf, but he's got to do some heavy lifting, right? He's got Adrian Yanez, a guy once a highly touted prospect, now 1-3 in his last 4 fights, but 6-3 in the UFC. He's got 5 finishes. And when you go out there and you only have one decision against Davy Grant, I think we can forgive you. Davy Grant is on all the steroids that you can purchase, and he is also just tough as an old leather boot. So I feel like you look at Giannis's career and you say, you know, he's lost some tough step ups, but now it's kind of put up or shut up time for him. And I feel like on the other side with Ricky Simone, you know, he went out there, he beat his teammate. Giannis is in the corner, man. Giannis is like the guy coaching him what to do in those positions. So I think it's now going to be, you know, a tougher version of that fight that he had with Smotherman. And I expected Ricky to go out there and dominate Smotherman, to take him down multiple times and probably to finish him, you know, get a submission. And he didn't do that, right? So instead, Ricky kind of struggled a little bit, especially down the stretch with the cardio. I think he's got a path to winning this fight. Giannis really has not been tested in the wrestling and the grappling since the regional scene, since he fought, you know, the Miles Johns of the world, lost a split decision there. I thought he did deserve to lose that, unfortunately, close fight. But I think that when you look at, you know, Ricky's path, that is the path. I think he's got to go out there and wrestle this guy. I think that you look at the shots that have hurt Ricky, the shots that have dropped him, put him down. You know, he's getting hurt by left hooks. He's getting dropped by, you know, a pretty clear straight right hand from Uriah Faber that he never saw coming. And I think that Adrian Yanez, fast hands, hits hard, you know, moves off position, can go after you. So if Ricky's smart, he's going to come out here, low kick, run away. And when Yanez chases after him, he's going to double leg him, going to try and put him on his ass and hold him there. But I just think the longer this fight spends on the feet, the more likely it is that Giannis can clip him on the chin, take him out. If this fight was not in Seattle, I would feel better about betting Giannis money line, honestly. But I do think that the crowd is going to support Ricky going out there and trying to hump his leg and take him down because he's a hometown guy. But I feel like Giannis is going to have a vocal contingent as well, just because he's kind of a fan favorite guy. He's got that fun style. So ultimately, I think it's a good scrap. And I think that my lines, my numbers came in just a little bit closer than what we've got here. So again, for me, it's a dogger pass situation on the money line. And, you know, Giannis KO and Ricky by submission were the two props that showed some value on my numbers as well. I've been working with that detailed prop kind of thing on Bet MMA to try and get a little bit of a better feel this week. And those were the things that jumped out and showed value on my numbers. What do you think about this one?
It's definitely an interesting matchup. I thought like Adrian Yanez was going to be something back in the day, but I don't know, man. He's just had a very funny career. In terms of how the fight's going to play out, like you said, it's basically grappling against striker. And Yanez, back in Fury, he fought Miles Johns, he fought Levi. In Legacy, obviously, he fought Levi Miles, and he didn't really do well in the wrestling department. I feel like if he does stop the takedowns, he's going to have the better striking, and he can take over down the stretch. But I feel like the weigh-ins I saw today, he didn't look the greatest, and that's why it's jumped back up to plus 145 on the money line. If you ask me, it is dog or pass. I don't really care if Ricky's from Seattle. We see guys from London lose in London. It doesn't really matter, really and truly. I do favour Yanez to get a bounce back win, but he has to come through some adversity in the wrestling department.
Yeah, I kind of see it the same way. The thing that for me, again, has made me hesitate on this fight, whereas like there's some fights I feel like I have a stronger read. Like I feel like I just am more convicted in the take. This fight, you go back and look. I always look at my old tweets because I feel like it tells me where my mindset was at when I was watching their last fight and things like that, right? And my last thought about Adrian Yanez was like, why is this guy not pushing? Why is this guy clinching against the fence, letting a fight slip through his fingers where, you know, Daniel Marcos looked like he was exhausted and he was, you know, huffing and puffing in round 3 and looking for rescue breaths. And Yanez, instead of like, you know, punching him in the body or landing 5 punches, he's clinching him against the fence with like 30 seconds left. And you're just like, what were you thinking? So regrettable from Yanez there. I think the tough thing for Yanez has been he's been in a coaching role as well as a athlete role. It can be very tough to balance those two pursuits, especially if you care about your athletes, right? So I feel like for Yanez, you know, this is kind of one that he needs, you know, so both guys I think are going to give their best. I will note I haven't seen the weigh-in yet. I've been very busy writing today, so I will take a look at the weigh-in for Yanez and see what he looked like. But I did think his IG, when I was looking at it, it looked like he was in incredible shape in the lead up to this fight.
I just forgot, if you've done like your research on it, Yanez's coach died a couple of years back, and he does his camps by himself. Like I don't really like that. And from what I've been told, that he's done his camp at, I think Saif Saeed's camp. So I like
Fortis
that he's got
MMA.
people. Yeah, I feel like that he has people behind him. These people that think they can do it by themselves, they don't really go too far. And I feel like hopefully we see a resurgence. I'm not really high on Ricky Simone. I like Yanez's character, personality. Hopefully he comes away with a decision. I think decisions on the cards for Yanez, really and truly. But yeah.
Yeah, and Ricky's had a ton of fights, 16 fights at the UFC level, some 5-rounders. He's taken these big steps up in competition, and it normally doesn't go his way when he takes those steps up. If you give him a lower end guy, he normally takes care of him. But for me, I feel like this is a very honest fight. So dogger pass.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, man. Next up, we got Navajo Sterling taking on Bruno Lopez. I'll kick this one over to you, my man. We got a big favorite here. Do you think that it's justified? Do you think Bruno Lopez is getting carried out? What do you think happens here?
I feel like Price is justified, but it's whether this guy finishes. Like, I feel like UFC want to push him, but he's not doing what's asked of him, if that makes sense. Like, he's had how many fights in the UFC now? Three. Three decisions. Bellator, I'll give him some respect on that, because Bellator is hard to put away, but he nearly had him on death's doors, didn't put him away. But Tukos, he's from London, London guy. These are the type of guys you should finish, really and truly. But he's got a gimme. We call it a gimme. Bruno Lopez, he's stuck in the mud. He's very slow. I can see him putting him out in round 1 or 2, and yeah, you can say something at the end of the fight to push for top 15. I think he's going to go places, but I have noticed he does slow down, and this camp he's worked on his speed. So let's see how that goes.
Yeah, man. I generally just completely agree on this fight. I think this is one of the more straightforward fights on the card. If I was saying like, all right, I'm Bruno Lopez's coach, how does he win this fight? We're going out there shooting takedowns right away, because I just don't want to be on the feet with this guy. Like, I think Bruno Lopez is a little bit slow. I think that Bruno Lopez is chinny, just straight up. Like, you watch any of his fights, even some of the fights where he wins, the guy gets touched on the chin, he does not react great. And like, there's some guys that get hit and like it looks like they don't like it, right? Like they like shell up and stuff like, but he just gets hit and it looks like he loses control of his faculties. So for me, I don't like betting on those kind of guys, especially light heavyweight. It doesn't take that much. So I feel like Sterling is probably going to get him out of there. I think he's going to get that first KO win in the UFC. And that's the way I see it going down. I think if Lopes gets it done, he gets it done on the ground. He gets it done with takedowns. And, I think he'd have to fight a really good fight. So I don't see him doing it. And I think Sterling's going to take him out. Prices suck, though. So I'll probably just be passing on this fight.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, my man, we got King Casey O'Neill taking on Gabriela Fernandez. Quite a long layoff for Casey O'Neill. Dealt with some knee injuries, dealt with some, stuff that does make me concerned, because what I would like to see from her, if I'm coaching Casey, we're shooting takedowns in this fight, and as many of them as we can, because Gabriela Fernandez looks like she's made some improvements in her takedown defense. I'm skeptical about what her extended grappling looks like, because when she was grappled in her early UFC fights, it was horrific. Right? Like, she was giving up mounts. She was giving up the back. She was giving up passes. She was giving up multiple takedowns. She was giving up 10 minutes of control. That's not bullish, right? And when I think about Casey O'Neill, what does she do well? She turns up the pace. She turns up the pressure. She keeps taking people down. She keeps trying to put them in bad positions. And if you listen to her interview, she basically said, when she fought Ariane Lipsky, she felt like she was in great shape. She felt like she did everything right. And then she got hit with one punch in the first round that like cost her equilibrium. And she said she never really recovered from that, right? Like, she was kind of just rocked the rest of the fight, and she didn't show a very good performance, right? I think that when you watch her subsequent performance, Luana Santos has won 2 fights since then, right? So it's not like she was a flash in the pan. She's come back and been successful. And Casey O'Neill went out there and kind of took her lunch money and beat her up and made her look bad. So I feel like when I look at these two women, I feel like Gabriela Fernandez, her stock is high right now, but she's 32. And I don't think that her grappling game has like suddenly leveled up. I think she submitted Kong Wang because Kong Wang was knocked out from a head kick. I think that, like, all due respect, and that was awesome, right? But she was getting outlanded there. She was getting beat up by Kong Wang. Kong Wang got overconfident and blew it. And that happens sometimes. And I think that when you look at Casey O'Neill, she could get clipped on the chin, right? You look at the prices, they say that Fernandez is more likely to win this fight inside the distance, but I feel like the pace is higher on the O'Neill side. I feel like we know that if she is the one pursuing takedowns, I feel like she could win this fight from the top position. She could finish this fight from the top position. So I just like more of what I've seen from Casey O'Neill. But again, it's been a little bit spotty. It's been a little bit inconsistent. If I was getting plus money, I'd be on Casey, but I'm not. So I'm probably just going to leave this fight well enough alone. I will look at the prop market though, because I do think Casey O'Neill is one of the more aggressive women from the top position when she gets it there. And her last opponent wasn't really conducive to that style. And she almost got it late, right? She was searching for it late, trying to get really aggressive there for the finish. So I think that if she gets those same positions against Fernandez, she might be able to find the finish. But I will say, not because Fernandez isn't tough. Fernandez is tough as shit. I just think that she's limited in some of her skill sets, right? What she does well is she's physical, she can hit you hard, and she stays in the fight. But I feel like Casey O'Neill could test that if she's able to get to the top position. So that's the way I see it, my man. What do you see?
I agree with everything that you just said. I got in on Casey as an underdog. I didn't agree with the price, and now she's where is she at right now? She's minus 119. I would say, like, you don't like to hear that she's had injuries, but I feel like she's had quite a long time off. She's gone to Thailand. She was with that Santino DeFranco guy, but she's left that whole camp because he's retired as a coach. That's a factor that you need to like take into consideration. It's not really the best thing, but I feel like she's a smart person. She knows what she needs to do. You can't stand in front of Gabriela Fernandez. She's going to piece you up on the feet. I feel like Casey's going to get takedowns and she's going to get top time and she's going to ride the clock. And I think she's going to get a decision win. Saying that, I know you have a lot of success betting Casey. So do I. I'm beating on all her fights, and I feel like she's going to get her hand raised on Saturday.
Yeah, man, I agree. I see her being the more likely winner. The thing that I wanted to just address from the chat, somebody said Casey doesn't wrestle as much as people think. I worry that the knee injury is what has led to her wrestling less. You know, some of it I think is opponent dependent. I also think, to your point, time off can help that, right? She can improve that, process by doing the physical therapy and recovering and doing the right things. But when I look at also the camp, you know, the Hickman brothers are good wrestlers, right? Bangtown Muay Thai is a pretty high level camp that's produced, you know, several people that competed for UFC titles, right? So I just think that this is the kind of fight where, hey, you know, it's an honest fight. You know, both women bring something to the table, but I think best version of both these women, I think Casey O'Neill runs away with this one in round 2 and 3. So ultimately, give me Casey O'Neill 2-3 decision in terms of how I see this fight going down. But I don't think it's going to be easy, right? She's going to have to earn it, but I think that Casey can get it done. All right, man. Next up. Oh, I'm excited to talk about this one, my man. We got a good wrestler, you know, coming in, right? I love my wrestlers. I'm a wrestling coach, and, you know, I like guys that can mix it up, that can fight a little bit, right? I think that Tyrell Fortune has some pros and cons, right? But his wrestling is definitely legit. If you look back, he was a 2-time JUCO national champion, which is solid, right? Like that's the kind of thing John Jones was doing when then he started to fuck off and do MMA instead, right? And then you look at, okay, well, what did he do when he went to a higher level, right? He went to Division II out of JUCO for 1 season, and he was a national champion. He was declared the most outstanding wrestler in Division II in that season. So Tyrell Fortune's very good wrestler, proven at a high level, went to the university nationals. He's a world-class wrestler in that regard. When you look at how it translates to MMA, I think that his best work on the ground is his ground and pound. He's not a guy who's going to go out there and submit many opponents, right? But when you look at, okay, what is he going to do? I think he's going to throw big hands. I think he's going to try and knock out Marcin Tybura. And I think if that doesn't work and he's not liking how it's going, he's going to shoot takedowns, and I think he will get the top position. There's a 75% takedown defense rate for Marcin Tybura, but not a lot of guys in the heavyweight division can really wrestle, and Marcin can wrestle, right? He's not a bad wrestler. I just think that the physicality difference and the level of proficiency will be a little bit different here. So I think this fight could look like a disaster if Tyrell Fortune slips on a banana peel and ends up underneath Marcin Tybura. He's a heavy top player. He's aggressive with ground and pound on top. He's got good submissions. He's the better submission grappler of these two men. But I think that when it comes down to it, you got a 35-year-old who's got less, tread on the tires, less damage. And I think he's going to go out there and knock out Marcin Tybura, because Marcin Tybura doesn't like guys that are athletic. He doesn't like guys that can wrestle better than he can. And he doesn't like guys that are going to put hands on him. And I think that Tyrell Fortune, he's been pretty conservative in these recent fights because he's trying to get a big bag and get signed. He's here. He's got an opportunity. He said he doesn't want to go out there and shoot takedowns. And for me, that translates to I want to go out there and try and knock this guy out. Marcin Tybura got knocked out by Augusto Sakai, who had a cup of coffee and then disappeared. He got knocked out by other guys that aren't the highest level guys. And that was when he was 33. That was when he was in the prime of his career. Now he's 40. And I think he's slowing down, right? He goes from beating Sergey Spivak, sunning him, showing him the octagon, teaching him everything about it, to getting taken down, trying to reverse position, getting armbarred by a guy that he was clearly levels above just a few years ago. And for me, that's a sign of regression. So I look at Tyrell Fortune as a guy that I will probably fade in the future when he goes against somebody that's going to offer more resistance. But I just think that he might be catching Marcin Tybura at the right time. And so I think I think Marcin Tybura is getting slept for the 7th time in his UFC career. What do you think?
Tybura, you know what you're getting with him. He's gonna try and survive in round 1 and then take over in 2, 3. But Tyrell, UFC, they don't sign anyone really and truly. Like, he's from Bellator. He's got an okay career, 17-3. He's never had an amateur fight. He's a good wrestler. He's good at speaking, really and truly. Like you said, you heard his interview. He said he's not going to go for takedowns. Heavyweight division is really, really boring at the moment. We need some strikers, and I feel like he's going to put away Tybura in round 1. Round 1 or round 2. If it's going late into round 2, you're going to think that Tybura is having success. But yeah, I just feel like he's going to catch him against the cage, and Tybura is just going to collapse.
I couldn't agree more, man. I was posting clips on Twitter. The Marcelo Gome fight, I feel like, showed how Tyrell Fortune could handle this fight. He could get to his positions on top. He could land big shots on the feet. And if he gets this guy backed up to the fence, he can unload with a combination. And Tybura, for all the things that he does really well, he's just not super dangerous in round 1 typically, right? So Tyrell Fortune can take a lot of chances and probably have success in round 1, where Tybura, I bet him against Romanov. Dude, he got 10-8'd, right? I could say it. I was happy to cash the ticket, but Romanov clearly just dominates him the whole first round, and he was so tired of beating his ass that he got beat up in round 2 and 3. That's the way that I think Fortune blows this kind of fight, but he just has the tools to keep this fight where he wants it, and he should be the faster guy with bigger power. So I feel like all that favors him, and I think he's going to get the win. All right, my man. Next up, we got a interesting fight here. I think people know my biases about Chase Hooper. The guy's made me so much money. He's a guy that I really respect the way he does it, because he doesn't look intimidating, but he gets the job done. Lance Gibson Jr. definitely looks the part a little bit more, a lot more brolic. A guy that doesn't look like you could shove him in a locker like Chase Hooper, right? But, I think both these guys have different skill sets in terms of what they've proven, what they've shown, at this level. I'll kick it over to you first, my man. What do you think about this fight, and how do you see it going down?
I think we're going to go against each other on this one. I feel like Lance Gibson Jr. at plus 285 is kind of crazy. Chase Hooper, if he's going to cover that, he needs to get a submission, or he needs to get a finish. And I feel like Chase Gibson, he just had a bad debut, really and truly. Fighting Bobby Green in your debut, it's a hard day's work. I feel like he was scared. He was timid. He didn't really look good in there. He did take a round off him, if I'm being real. That was a winnable fight if he fought smart. Chase, has he had a fight since the Alex Hernandez fight? Was that the last fight he's had?
I'm pretty sure that was his most recent fight.
Okay, yeah. I'm just thinking. So after he got finished by Garcia, I know that was at 145, but he went on a win streak. I just feel like I feel like this is an honest fight, as you say. I'm going to use your word, honest. I feel like Lance Gibson Jr. is going to make it competitive. It really depends how it goes in 2-3. I don't think he gets finished, really and truly. Yeah, it's a really tough one because Chase is from Seattle. Lance Gibson's born in Seattle, so it's not really, nobody's really like got the home turf advantage. I lean Lance Gibson, really and truly, at dog odds. I feel like he's had the debut jitters, he's got it out of the way, and he's gonna make it interesting on the feet. I feel like your boy's in for a tough test tomorrow.
Hey, well, I got the chance to surprise you with my breakdown of this fight, which actually showed value on the Lance Gibson Jr. side. Now, I don't know if I'm going to get there from a betting standpoint, but when I ran my own numbers, this is what I came up with, right? And as you can see on the Chase Hooper side, it's a lot of red, right? There's just no value as I see it on Chase this week. And you guys know me. I love betting on Chase, right? Maybe I have some value on a Chase like KO 2 or 3 if I like really look through the market, something like that. But ultimately, the way I see Chase winning this fight is the way I see Chase winning all of his fights, which is he's an excellent scrambler. The guy has an ability to kind of make people make mistakes on the ground. If you watch Jordan Levitt go out there and out-grapple a black belt in Yadier Devay, he made that look kind of easy, right? He did his thing. He got to his control positions. And then you watch him go against Chase Hooper, and everything is in fast motion, right? Chase is just making you make decision after decision. And I tell my wrestlers, some guys, if you really get to them with 5 attempts, right? You make it physical. That'll get them tired. And other guys, you make them make 5 decisions and they want to go home. They just that's too much for them. They're overloaded mentally. So there's different ways to attack people. And I do think that Chase Hooper, that's what he does really well, is he just makes you make a lot of decisions in a fight. And some guys break under that kind of pressure. The other thing I think that is underrated about Chase, or maybe it's now rated if you look at the market, but is his ability to just get off ground and pound from the top position, right? The guy is really dangerous on top of people because he's long, he has good control, and he's able to get posture with his height and rain down punches and elbows in bunches because he's got good cardio. So those are the things that make him really dangerous. The problem is his defense is horrific. And I've talked about it in every fight. When I wrote up the Alexander Hernandez fight, I said a lot of the same things. Like, I'm picking Chase Hooper. I think he's the better guy on the ground. Like, I think that if the fight gets extended, he's got more ways to win. He's got great cardio. He's got a good process for winning fights. He throws out a ton of offense. He does a lot of things well. But when you have a 39% striking defense, like, you're just going to get knocked out sometimes in fighting, right? And Chase, he's been knocked out several times, right? At the time he got knocked out by Steve Garcia, everybody was like, oh my God, this guy's a bum. Like, he's the worst fighter of all time. And it's like, well, since then, Steve Garcia has turned into a contender in the featherweight division, right? A guy who's on a really serious win streak right now. So I think that one you can kind of give a little bit of grace to. And getting knocked out by Hernandez is a big, strong man, right? Very seasoned. And what he's good at is knocking people out in the first round, right? Ask Beneil Dariush in his prime. Ask, certain guys. It's like, this guy can go out there and really cause problems. And so I think that when you look at what Lance Gibson Jr. can do to win this fight and where do my numbers show extreme value, it's like he can knock out Chase Hooper. And it's not because I think Lance is like the greatest thing to, God's gift to fighting or something, right? It's just because Chase is there to be hit and Lance throws heavy leather and he's going to try and take his head off. So I feel like the way you look at this fight is, if you're looking for a money line side, you're probably looking towards Lance Gibson Jr. Again, you said it, Washington on Washington crime. I think both these guys, would have petitioned to be on this card, right? You look, how did Lance Gibson Jr. get his name on the radar? He was begging to be on UFC Seattle. Then he ended up getting on a different card, a different opportunity against Bobby Green. Was what it was. Now he's in Seattle. I think there's going to be a big crowd pop for both these guys. I think both these guys are going to go out there and compete. So maybe the fight not to go the distance. Let me take a look at that. Yeah, my numbers show a little bit of value on the fight not to go the distance as well. If you're looking for a pivot, a way to, maybe get off of playing aside, I think that that's a way to consider it, because I think Chase is there to get knocked out. But the longer you're out there with Chase, the more likely it is that he'll get a good position on you, which he can capitalize on super quick, right? He can be losing 12 minutes of a fight. He gets one good position on the ground, the fight's over. And then you look at, additionally, like, the guy can just rack up this damage on you that makes guys break later in fights. So if he gets the top position 2 times in the fight, it could be wraps on the ground from just damage, ground and pound accumulation, making somebody, fold the tent. So I don't think Lance Gibson is a punk. Like, I don't think he's just going to give it up, but I've seen Chase Hooper beat it out of people before. And, I do think that on the ground, the guy is just a machine in terms of cardio. And Jim Miller, a black belt, was able to make him work and make him earn it. I feel like Chase in this fight might look like he's just 1 or 2 steps ahead if this fight's on the mat. So if this fight stays upright, Gibson Jr. very live to win the fight, right? A lot of guys are against Chase, even though I love him. On the ground, I just think he's going to be, 1 or 2 steps ahead and a little bit faster in his exchanges. Anything you want to add before we move to the next one?
Everything that you just said, we can go on to the next one.
All right, next up, we got Ignacio Bahamondes taking on Tofik Musayev. Dude, this is an interesting fight because Musayev, dangerous striker. He does fit the kind of height and reach profile of the guys that have troubled Ignacio Bahamondes, funny enough, in the UFC. Some of the smaller guys, a little bit more stout, a little bit more, powerful maybe in their striking. But I think that Bahamondes, big, long kid, 28, getting better all the time. I think that for me, like the thing that just jumped out immediately was Bahamondes to win this fight via submission. You look at Musayev, he's been submitted a million times, and Bahamondes has submitted guys that don't get submitted, right? He's submitting guys like Jalen Turner is 4-1 career to the submission, 3-1 in the UFC to the submission, normally going out there dominating guys. And he was not exactly loving things on the feet, took him down, and then gets submitted from the full guard. And I do think maybe 5 years ago that wouldn't happen to Jalen Turner, but I also think you got to give respect where it's due. And Bahamondes went out there and did the job, right? Then you look at, how did Bahamondes do against Zhu Rong? He goes out there and taps Zhu Rong, a guy who's very hard to put away, a guy who's tough as an old leather boot. So I just think that this Bahamondes kid, he's got the ability to take this guy out on the mat, period. And I think that if he's not getting takedowns, he could do it from a front headlock series. He could do it from being opportunistic, kick the guy off balance and then go for it. So I think that if the fight just stays upright, it's going to look like a much more honest fight. That's the word of the day today. But I also think that when you look at, if I'm just evaluating, you've got the height, the reach, the age, you're the better grappler, in my opinion. And I think that you're probably going to throw more strikes if this stays on the feet for 15 minutes. All those reasons point me to Bahamondes getting the win. But at minus 320, I don't need to get involved with the money line side here. If anything, I'll probably just be taking a small play on Bahamondes by sub because Musayev is super vulnerable there. Getting sub by oral by, that's no skin off your nose, right? That's no shame. But it's the ease, right? It's the way that Oralbai is able to just take his lunch money, and I kind of expected that, honestly. So I think that Bahamondes, if he's able to land some good shots, if he's able to extend the fight, if Musayev goes for an ill-advised takedown attempt that, he didn't set up, I think he's getting choked. So that's the bottom line, man. I think Bahamondes probably gets him in a front choke, puts him away.
Again, Bahamondes, he's a basically 50-50 guy, like really and truly. Like when he's priced like this, he loses. So it's a weird one. But he's got a favorable matchup against Tofik. I feel like Tofik is old. He's had a good camp. Like it looks like he's taking it serious. But I just feel like his last decision win was in like 2019. I feel like Ignacio he eats punches for lunch. Like I don't see him getting knocked out. I don't see him losing via spinning KO. I feel like Ignacio has all the finishing upside. I know he's not going to go for takedowns, but I feel like the submission's there. I've got some money on sub 1, sub 2 at nice prices, and I feel like Ignacio is going to get a submission win. Yeah, he does lose to he lost to Ludovic Klein. Ludovic Klein, we have to admit this guy's good. I feel like the market always disrespects him. I disrespect him.
My doppelganger.
Yeah,
Right
you're lookalike. You and Rebecca and Ludovic.
And then he beat my other lookalike's ass, dude. So now I feel like he's the official lookalike, and Rebecca's like my stunt double or something.
Rebecca nearly won that though, but we'll talk about it another day. I think Ignacio is going to finish his food. Tafik, he's got a big following, but I feel like this was a bad signing from the UFC. They signed him for Baku, the Baku fight, or Baku. That's coming up soon, so it looks like they're kind of done with him. They should have saved him for that card. They're putting him on this card. It kind of tells you everything. So, yeah, I think he's going to get finished by Ignacio.
There you have it, my man. We see this one the exact same, which I love to see. Next up, another Washington native. We got Terrence T-Rex McKinney. He's also looking to hold serve. He's got his wrestling coach fighting on the card later in the night. So tugging at my own heartstrings, that's the dream right there, fighting on the same card as your protege. And meanwhile, Kyle Nelson, one of these guys who's just a career overperformer in the UFC. I think not a lot of people expected much from Kyle Nelson. He's gone out there, put together some wins, some controversial. I remember in Atlantic City, a lot of people were not happy with that stoppage over Bill, but Kyle Nelson able to get the job done. He's a guy that has some big power, but he's also a guy that when you hit him with big power back, he does not always react very well. I do question what his grappling will look like against a high-level operator, especially in the early going. I do think McKinney is probably going to have advantages there on the mat. I think he's the more physical guy in the wrestling. I think he could take Nelson to the ground, but the longer the fight goes, the better it is for Kyle Nelson. So for me, I think McKinney probably wins this in round 1 at a decent clip, and that's the way I see it going down. McKinney probably by submission. What do you think?
Isn't McKinney the most exciting 5-minute fight in the world? Like, what?
Right up there.
Honestly, really and truly, if this guy had 25 minutes in him, we're talking about a champion, but yeah, that's not going to happen. I feel like Terrence, he's just going to, how can I explain it? I just feel like what he's going to come with in the first round, Kyle's not going to be able to handle. I feel like Kyle's going to shell up. I understand, what's his name? Steve hit him with elbows on the back of the head or on the ground. It was a weird kind of finish, but I just feel like Terrence is going to hurt him and then he's going to sub him, really and truly. Kyle's going to be like, what happened? Kyle's a firefighter. He's not really all in. Terrence is all in. I think it kind of writes itself. If you're scared to pay Terrence, pay under 1.5. I understand it's kind of juiced. I feel like that's free money. Yeah. McKinney, round 1 or under 1.5. I feel like they're both winners. Yeah, that's all I have, mate.
I love it. We see this one the same as well. I lean McKinney under violence. Any way you want to slice it here. I think we're going to be done quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Yeah.
Next up, we got Mansur Abdul Malik, Yusri Belgarui. This might be the Twitter plant your flag fight of the week. A lot of contention on this one, and I can understand why. I was high on Mansur Abdul Malik coming into the UFC, another guy with a wrestling background, fairly solid, right? Definitely a good high school pedigree. Was a little bit undersized as a heavyweight wrestling in college, so now you see him at 185 pounds, much more appropriately sized. He's taking on a huge man here in Yusri Belgarui, one of the bigger guys in this division, long, tall, awkward kickboxer, and a guy that has clearly improved his wrestling and grappling. If you look at his Instagram, you see why, right? At Glover Teixeira MMA, they got this guy standing next to a wall and guys are just coming in fresh, trying to take him down 5 minutes at a time, 6-7 minutes at a time, trying to just keep this guy down, hold him down, press him against the fence. So I do think that Yusri understands the assignment. It's get off the fence, don't get held there. If you get taken down, do not sit on the back, get up to your feet. So I do think Yusri is live to knock out Mansur. I think I've seen Mansur hurt before, regionally, right before he got to the UFC. We've seen Mansur underperform in some of these fights. You can say maybe he was betting against himself or whatever he was doing. I know there's theories out there. I'm sure you can elaborate on. But I think that when you look at this fight, if it plays out on the feet, I think Yusri is probably a favorite in this fight, right? But I think that if Mansur is able to get takedowns, he might look like a dominant favorite, right? And I just say that because it's one thing to defend takedowns. It's one thing to keep fights upright, but it's a different thing when somebody gets on top of you. And Wes Schultz, I know that he looked at, all out of sorts in his last fight, right? I know that physically he's not the most imposing guy, but Wes Schultz can wrestle. Wes Schultz can scramble. Wes Schultz is an awkward guy in the grappling, and Mansur just bounced his head all over the canvas from ground and pound positions on the mat. And that was why Wes Schultz was all out of sorts in that fight. And I do think that if Mansur's able to get on top of you, it's a disaster for you, right? He also just showed that submission against Tricoli. You know, we all thought Mantis was going to go out there and finish this guy. I don't know if they bet the decision. I don't know what happened there, but some kind of disaster struck, right? So you just look and see, like, I could imagine if Mansour wins this fight, he could win this fight via submission in the first round. You know, like, just go out there and pick this guy up one time, take him to the ground, and hop on his back and finish him. I think Yusri is a tough guy, so I don't think it's going to be easy. But I go back and look, and like Marco Tulio out-grappled and out-wrestled Yusri Belgarui. And then you look, he's got one submission on his professional career. He's not much of a grappler, right? In that sense, right? He's not going out there looking to finish guys on the ground. He's looking to go crazy on the feet. And it just seems to me like if Mansour Abdul Malik comes in with a smart game plan, he's going to go out there and try and take this guy down. And it looks like he's got a lot of smart guys and good fighters in his corner. You know, Sean Strickland, Manel Cap, these other guys, they're all saying, like, watch Mansour this weekend. Like, he's going to show you what time it is. And I do think that there's some truth to that. I think Mansour is a special athlete, but as my guy, Dan Levy says, nobody's immune to that first L time, right? And I do think that if there was a way to draw up the loss for Mansour here, it's the takedowns aren't working, or he doesn't decide to go to them and he plays around on the feet with this guy and gets touched up and gets damaged up and gets out volumed. And I think that that's a likely path if he goes 15 minutes on the feet with Yusri. So fascinating fight though, my man. What do you think?
Main event. Everyone's divided on this. Mansour is a good fighter. Yusri is a good fighter, but I feel like Yusri is going to have a lot of striking success, and I feel like his takedown defense has been improving, and I feel like I keep saying I feel like, sorry, ADHD brain's cooking right now. I feel like Yusri is going to fuck up his lead leg, and then Mansour is not going to be able to get takedowns. I feel like he's just going to move out of positions, and I feel like Yusri is just going to piece him up over 15. Like Mansour's going to be a pinata. Like Dan Levy said, first L time's coming. I feel like Mansour's going to come back better from this, but I feel like Yusri is going to win this fight.
There you go. First L time for Mansour Abdul Malik. That's the call. And dude, I've kind of gone back and forth on this one all week. So gonna have to make a tough decision. And yeah, I think it's a really close fight. So fucking brutal. Close fight.
Yeah.
I guess now that it's moved to Belgarui, like plus 120, I would have to say that's the side, but super close fight for me, and my numbers reflected that as well. All right. Next up, we've got Larian Douglas making his UFC debut, the gunslinger, 30 years of age, a little bit faster on the draw, perhaps, than a guy like Julian Erosa, savvy veteran, Washington native, guy who's looking to make that stand at home, and a guy that's got excellent skills, you know, great cardio, excellent submission skills as well. So it's a fascinating fight because I feel like if this fight ends by knockout, I favor Douglas for sure. But I don't think Erosa is like drawing dead to knock this guy out because we saw Thompson, a long guy, a guy who throws a lot of kicks, kind of had some, success going against Douglas, like keeping him in an uncomfortable range for his punches. I just think that the difference there is Thompson's a lot faster. He's a young guy. And I don't know that Erosa can match that kind of speed dynamic. But when I look at, how Erosa just has performed in his career, like, not getting finished by Costa, that's aged quite well, actually, right? And like the guy has a chin that comes and goes with the wind, and that's a dangerous thing against Douglas, right? But plus 270, I feel like it's a dog or pass situation because the longer the fight goes, the more chance that Erosa wins, in my opinion. And if this fight is like Erosa shoots a takedown in the first 30 seconds, I feel like Erosa could win the fight via submission. You know, he's a dangerous grappler, very opportunistic there. So yeah, for me, like, I feel like Douglas KO is the most likely outcome, but it's priced in, right? And I just think that Erosa, he's got some factors that work in his advantage, but 36, bunch of knockout losses, that's the danger factor here. So we'll go Douglas KO as the pick, but dog or pass for me on these numbers. What do you think?
I feel like Julian Erosa, Juicy J, is one of my favorite fighters, man. But that chin, it's up there with Matt Schnell's. Like, I feel like it's there for the taking. It's sad to say, but do you know the thing with Melky? Melky's a kicker, so I feel like he had success because there's no really punching power that's coming from Melky's side. And it's crazy because I feel like he kind of won the Melky fight, but he just has a really weird career. I feel like Padilla, he wasn't the greatest, and you saw what he done to him in round one. It's fair to say it was a quick stoppage, like he was going like that, like what happened? But his hands are down all the time, and this Douglas guy has shotguns for hands. Like when he hurts you, when he touches you, you're going down. Like it's not a joke. And like we go back to Alex Caceres, Bruce Leroy. He's not really a finisher, and you saw what he done to Julian Erosa. I just feel like Julian Erosa, he's a great fighter, a great guy. He just got given his new contract, so UFC love him. So do you know when you get a new contract, you're an underdog? He was saying in interviews, you guys should bet on me. That just leads to a like KO1 loss in my eyes. Like you got a new contract, you're winning at the end of the day. You're gonna get a new fight regardless. I feel like this Douglas guy is hungry. I also saw that Steve Garcia, Mean Machine, he was saying that Douglas is one of his best training partners. This guy's a killer. Watch out for him. And if Steve Garcia is saying that, I believe him. So I feel like KO1 for Douglas. He doesn't really do it in round one, if I'm being honest. I feel like round two is my pick. I feel like Douglas round 2 KO. If we talk about Douglas, also he doesn't like getting hurt either, so I can understand the Juicy J 2-3 kind of takes, but I feel like he's going to show out in his UFC debut. Arosa's not Isaac Thompson; it's a different type of fight. Before he can get the fight going, he's going to be asleep. So yeah, that's my take.
Yeah, that is definitely the downside risk here for Julian Erosa. One of the guys that maybe you wait for a live entry, but again, I wasn't thrilled by the sub price here. You know, it was only like plus 650. I would have wanted a little bit higher, but I think that Erosa's path is probably also in the later rounds. You know, I find it interesting. But shout out to Bub Collins here. Yo, one of my favorite parts of the week. You are a legend. You are a legend, Bub Collins. I appreciate you. Shout out to you for the support, my brother. But with that being said, my man, we can move on to the next fight on the card. And I'll be very quick, fast and to the point with my breakdown on this fight. Nico Price coming back off a very quick turnaround, my man. He got cleaned up by Veretennikov in February. Now he's back here, you know, I think around 6 weeks later, and he clearly got concussed in that fight. You know, took a lot of damage there. The guy's been finished in 8 of his 10 UFC losses, and he's coming in against Michael Chiesa in Chiesa's retirement fight. You know, Nico Price came in and did the JOB for Robbie Lawler in his retirement fight, right? Got sent out of there cold in the first round. And obviously, Michael Chiesa, not a hitter like Robbie Lawler, but his striking has almost looked career best in the later portions of his career. You know, the guy has beaten up Max Griffin before submitting him, you know, landed some big shots. He got his only UFC knockdown in Seattle against George Masvidal back in the day. And to be honest with you, my man, I think Michael Chiesa is going out on top with a big win, with a big finish in front of the Seattle faithful. I think they're going to, you know, shout the roof down. But I also think that my numbers showed some value on the under on the fight not to go, because I think that Nico Price is like a meme merchant. Like if you just look at how he's won fights throughout his career, he bonks people on the chin in weird ways from weird angles, or he like grabs a hold of a sub that you've never seen before. Like Nico Price is just one of these guys that you will not replicate. Like nobody will ever teach their guy how to fight like Nico Price. But you also look and say, you know, 50% takedown defense rate, got concussed 6 weeks ago. This is not going to turn out well for Nico Price at a very high clip. So I think it's Chiesa. I think it's Chiesa inside the distance. And I think Chiesa goes out with his first and only UFC knockout. That's the way I see it going down. How about you, my man?
I feel like Nico gets a call to lose by finish against these retirees. The only way I see him winning is like a weird up kick like he done against James Vick. Other than that, I feel like Chiesa's going to cover. As we spoke about, like the Sean Brady round 3, like he was letting off great ground and pound. But I don't think it's going to get to round 3. That's the thing. So I feel like if he lets off ground and pound, Nico's going to give up his neck. But you know what it is? Like the Jacoby Smith fight, it was really weird because Nico was having a good round 1. So it's just like, what's going to happen in this fight? It's a bit weird. Chiesa does what he has to do. Like, you know, you saw what he done to Tony Ferguson. I feel like KO is live, but most likely it's going to be a submission. Submission in 1 or 2 is my opinion on the fight.
Yeah, I think that that's the most likely outcome. You know, if you talk about Nico Price being a meme merchant, Chiesa been a rear naked choke merchant, right? Like that's basically just been the crux of his career. So I think that that's the most likely outcome by far. But I think that if you just say like, man, what if Chiesa gets on top of this guy? What if Chiesa just punches this guy in the face and he goes out cold because Nico Price doesn't take a great punch anymore? Like Court McGee, you got to kill that man. Like the guy is basically invincible unless you're Jeremiah Wells. But if you just look, like most of the time, Nico Price is getting finished. Like sometimes he gets worn down. Sometimes he gets clipped on the chin. Sometimes it's like he just has a bunch of different ways he can get finished. And I think Michael Chiesa could exploit that.
Definitely.
All right. That brings us to the co-main event of the evening, my man. I'm going to torture you by making you go first on this one. We got Alexa Grasso taking on Macy Barber in a rematch of one of the fights of all time. But I think that just when you look at a fight like this, Macy coming in as a favorite, lost the first fight, just like Tainara. What do you think goes down in this one, my man?
I feel like the Macy love is a bit overblown and it's overrated. I don't really, I do like her. Don't get me wrong. She's made me a lot of money, but I feel like Grasso is getting disrespected. I feel like she's gonna piece her up on the feet. I feel like submission's even live. I know you're a submission guy. Submission round 3 for Grasso is something I'm looking at right now, which is a crazy price. Yeah, so round 3 is plus 3,500, and then round 3 submission is plus 5,000. So I feel like Grasso, on the main card, there's always going to be an underdog that wins. I feel like Grasso is a live underdog, plus 160 on the money line. I feel like Macy's going to have a good round 1, 2, 3. Grasso comes alive, and she pieces her up, and then they get in a weird transition, weird exchange, and then Grasso snatches up the neck. That's my take on the fight. Grasso for the money line. I like Grasso.
I do think that the number was pretty big. That was one of the things that did jump out on my numbers as well. Was Grasso by sub. You know, the thing that I don't love for Grasso is just physically, I feel like she could be put in the bottom position here. I don't think she's very likely to get a sub off of her back. I don't think it's impossible, but I just don't think that's very likely. I think getting to the back is her path to the submission here. I do think she's quite opportunistic there. She put, a red ring around Val's face where the blood had stopped going to her brain. Val is not one to easily tap, right? But she basically was just put in a position where if you don't get blood to your brain, you either tap or you go to sleep like everybody else. And I think that you look at Grasso, that's the one thing that she's super opportunistic with, and she can get to it. I saw her submit what's her name? Joanne Calderwood in person in Columbus, Ohio. So shout out to Alexa Grasso. I saw the champ do that work one time in person. And then I saw, obviously her do it for the big underdog ticket that I had on Alexa Grasso on the money line. Yes, I was. But nice. Now I look and it's like, could I get there on the money line? Like I probably would have a hard time getting to Barber at these prices, but I do think that the more likely party to win by knockout is Barber. Barber has something that a lot of women don't have at 115, which is just when she hits people, they really don't like it. They bleed, they bust up, they get cut. And I just don't really see as much of that from Grasso, she's probably a little bit sharper, a little bit cleaner, but I just think Barber's ugly, like elbows over the top and stuff like that. She actually causes damage in her fights. And, I think that for me, probably just staying away from this fight. Like I don't have the strongest read. My gut says Barber, but the price is already baked in on that. And, plus 650 for the KO prop, like it's just not the kind of price that really gets me excited, especially for WMMA when, Grasso's tough as an old leather boot herself. Like I think it would take Macy Barber kind of busting her up, getting to a top position where she's throwing down some ground and pound and like a merciful ref intervenes type of thing. I think that would be her path to the stoppage here. So at plus 650, it's just not enough meat on the bone.
Definitely. I feel like she was on her way to finishing Karine Silva, but she got dazed by that kick to the head. So, yeah.
Yeah. Put her on autopilot instead. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, my man. That brings us, of course, to the main event of the evening. And my numbers were very interesting when I ran them on this fight because you look at Israel Adesanya, guy definitely has the better resume, the better pedigree, championship, right? Like this guy fought at the highest levels of the sport. And on the other side, Joe Pyfer, when he did step up to a main event against Jack Hermanson, I expected him to win that fight and he blew it, right? So that's the kind of thing that you're like, man, is this guy just not on the level? Is Joe Pyfer fraudulent in that way? And I think that that's still an open question. But I think the one thing that I feel I know about this fight is that the fresher fighter who's closer to their athletic prime is Joe Pyfer, right? I think that if I was to say this fight ends via submission, I think it's way more likely that Joe Pyfer wins the fight than Israel Adesanya. And I think that when you look at these guys and who's more likely to win by knockout, I would favor Izzy in that regard. But I don't think it's impossible for Pyfer to go knock this guy out, especially early in the fight where Pyfer packs a pretty big punch. So I think that, who's the more skilled fighter on the feet? I think Israel Adesanya. I think clearly so, right? I think he can replicate some of the success that Jack Hermanson had with the kicks. But I just think the one difference is Joe Pyfer didn't want to wrestle with Jack Hermanson because he was afraid that Jack was going to be the better guy on the ground. And Jack is a really dangerous counter grappler who's got an excellent, seated Kenekatami, and he gets you in that choke. And then, you're a black belt tapping. That's happened to multiple black belts in the UFC, right? Like Gerald Mearshart tapped to that choke. What's his name? David Branch tapped to that choke. They're both black belts, right? It's a very good choke. So Joe Pyfer showed it a lot of respect. Israel Adesanya has never outgrappled anybody at the UFC level, with all due respect, right? Like he just is a guy that, Duplessis, while he was a little bit tired and had already been hit many times, was like, get over here, and just grabbed a hold of him in the most awkward exchange ever and got his back and then finished the fight, right? And I feel like Joe Pyfer is training with Nick Rodriguez, not because he wants to go out there and test his kickboxing against Israel. I think he wants to go out there and take this guy down as fast as he can and try and get on top of him and test him on the ground. And for me, that is the path for Joe Pyfer. And I feel like when you look at a guy who's plus 130, and I feel like he's got a couple different paths here, it's probably a dog or pass situation for me. And again, if this fight was 2-3 years ago, I would definitely say, Israel Adesanya, of course. But it's not 2 or 3 years ago. It's today. And I feel like Izzy has been a diminished version of himself. I picked Nasruddin Imavov. I picked Duplessis. And I think Joe Pyfer's the worst of the bunch, but styles make fights. And I feel like Joe Pyfer in this fight is not going to be afraid to go out there and shoot his takedowns and try and take this guy down. And I think that if he does that, he's probably going to get on top of him. So ultimately, Izzy has a chance to win this fight. I would rather, if I'm on the Izzy side, take the fight not to go the distance personally, because I feel like the path for Izzy to look like a favorite in this fight is to go out there, land a ton of low kicks, beat this guy up, and take him out of the fight, show level, show class on the feet, defend the takedowns, beat him up. And when Pyfer starts to get tired, kick him to the body, make him quit. That's the path, I feel like. But on the other side, I feel like most of Pyfer's win equity is a finish, and the books reflect that, right? He's plus 130 to win the fight, plus 150 to win inside the distance. It's they're like, he's either going to do it or he's not. And I just feel like this fight ends inside the distance more often than not. So I'd rather lay the chalk on that than I would, I think it's under 4.5 at minus 125 or something. I would rather have that, in my opinion, than Adesanya minus 150, because he could be having a master class and then, Pyfer throws one errant right hook and just hits him on the chin and he goes down, and it's, credit the meme, but it's I just see that happening, right? Imavov, he was looking good until he wasn't, right? And his own coach said, the 2 fights before that, I thought he should retire. But then in the Imavov fight, he looked all right. So maybe he could do it. It's that doesn't sound super bullish to me. Yeah, ultimately, I think Izzy committed for this camp. I think he tried his hardest. But when you're 36 and you're a speed and movement and, being elusive type of guy, and that starts to go, I'm not sure how that ages. So ultimately, I just think Pyfer's in a better situation right now. What do you think?
God has, I was on Calvin against him. I was on Rob against him. Pyfer is a good fighter. He's a meat and bones fighter. You know what you're getting. He's kind of a head case. I feel like Kelvin took round 3 off him, and that's a concern. Obviously, we know that Kelvin's defense is impeccable with his head. You can't knock him out. But Kelvin taking round off you, it's kind of sketchy. Round 3. I feel like Adesanya, if he doesn't die in the first 2 rounds, he's live to take over. He's never had a round 3 to round 5 finish, but I can see it being there for him. I'm seeing a lot of takes that he's not interested in this camp, or he's lost motivation. Boxers say like when you get rich, you start wearing silk pajamas, you stop caring about fighting. But I've been watching his YouTube comps and I've been watching Navajo Sterling, and he's been with Navajo Sterling the whole camp. I just feel like Adesanya is going to be game. I feel like Pyfer's strength of schedule hasn't been Adesanya's strength of schedule. If he was to face Amaivov would have done the same thing. Adesanya took round one of Amaivov. Something happened, done that whole Alex Pereira thing. He tried to aura farm, said, ref, don't get involved. Then he got knocked out. If that didn't happen, what could have been kind of thing. The Dricus fight, you know how Dricus is plot armor, like he does what he wants. I feel like that was a really even fight until he just said, get over here, and then he submitted him. But I feel like Adesanya is going to remind a couple people, and he's going to get the win. I feel like he's going to finish. Under 4.5 rounds at -110 is nice. I can see him finishing Joe Pyfer mid to late. I feel like Pyfer, like you said, he didn't really want to grapple with Jack because Jack's got submissions in his back pocket. But Jack was piecing him up over 25. Why can't Izzy do that? He just needs to stay off the cage really and truly. And his stance switches, I feel like he's becoming much more slow. I feel like Joe can catch him with a KO, but if I really, really put my mind to it, I think Adesanya is going to get the win.
There you have it. Well, we disagree on who gets the win, but we both agree on that under 4.5 rounds. So I think you could do worse with Pyfer sub and under 4.5 rounds in this fight. Pyfer subs like +750. It's a pretty big number. Under 4.5, reasonable chalk. And I think, both these guys have a chance to go out there and find that knockout on the feet. But I think Pyfer, if you look at some of these sharp markets, they're in the 4s, right? And they're kind of undercutting Pyfer sub. And if you look at his Instagram again, Nicky Rod, hey, go get him this weekend, buddy. It's like, I think the game plan is kind of obvious from Joe Pyfer. And like, again, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out how should I go attack the glory kickboxer. It's like, oh, I should go, trade fisticuffs with him. No, probably shouldn't do that. So I think that this is the fight for Pyfer to go out there and show that his grappling is not a fluke, but ultimately somebody go get finished and cash us in, regardless of which side we're on here. But my brother, it has been an absolute blast. We went hyper speed through the card, got it all done in record time. Fired up about it, my man. It was great to finally have you on the show. You're always welcome to come back on, my brother. And I wanted to give you the floor to say, oh no, I can hear you. I hope that everybody else can hear me. It's possible the headphones went. But what we can do, my man, is...
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay, the audience can hear me. So
sorry, bro. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead and dude, the floor is yours. Please tell the people where they can find you, anything that you want to say, my man. And by the way, your information linked already in the description box down below. I can't hear you. I don't know if you're muted now or what happened. Nope. I don't know what happened there. Oh, no. You can definitely find Marlo's stuff in the link in the description below, guys. That I can tell you. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. It wouldn't be one of my streams if there wasn't technical difficulties. So I can't hear you right now, but I'm hopeful that we can get it back. But I will just say, in the meantime, shout out to everybody for rocking with us in the chat. Appreciate everybody for being here. Marlo, thank you so much for being here, my brother. Guys, go support him. Go find him. His Twitter's linked down below. His betmma.tips. One of the sharpest guys in the space, in my humble opinion. One of the opinions I respect the most in this game. So as far as I consider it, I'm glad to have him on the show, a new friend of the show, and hopefully he'll be back on in the very near future, guys. But I wanted to just say, God bless, good luck to each and every one of you guys. I hope that you enjoy those fights at UFC Seattle and come back next week because we're having all the same fun again. If you guys don't mind, like the stream, get subscribed to the channel, share it with a friend, drop a comment if you got something interesting to say down below. But I appreciate each and every one of you guys, and I'll see you same bat time, same bat channel next week. Take care, everybody. God bless.